One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Sunday morning, 4th of July weekend. Well, with us today is Dick Grasso. And, well, he was really famous, and he still is. I mean, everybody knows his name. He was the head of the New York Stock Exchange from 1995 to 2003, and he took the New York Stock Exchange to new heights and created something that was beautiful. And you did a great job, Dick Grasso. It's 20 years later. You're still working hard.
Well, John, I'm honored to be with you because I know how hard you work in all of your businesses. But I know it's so important to you, the media business, that you communicate out to the constituency, not just here in the greater New York area, but around the country. The message of opportunity that underlies this 4th of July celebration, this, if you will, recognition of 250 years of success of a nation that says, you're not going to get a handout, you're going to get a hand up, okay? And with that hand up, you can go to heights that no one could have ever dreamed of. And I certainly did, John, as a kid from the streets of Queens, okay, who dropped out of college, okay, got drafted, and when I got out of the Army, got a job on Wall Street at the New York Stock Exchange at $81 a week as a union member, and boy, I thought I hit the lottery. I said, the stories about the streets of America are paved in gold. When I got that first paycheck, I said, hallelujah, I've made it. And 35 and a half years later, as I left the exchange, earning slightly more than $81 a week as chairman and CEO, I still felt the same way I felt the day when I walked in. This country offers anyone and everyone the opportunity to learn and grow and prosper and make it a better life for their kids and their kids' grandkids. So I'm honored to be with you, John C., and happy to extol the virtues of capitalism because too many people are talking about socialism.
Well,
I don't think labels are important. I think what's important, John, to the people that we're addressing today, that you address every week in your great program, are the kitchen table issues, the cost of food, the cost of fuel, the cost of rent, the cost of medications, the cost of education. How do we do a better job at bringing that down to a level where people like I once was, on the streets of Corona or Elmhurst or Jackson Heights, okay, struggling as my mom raised me as a single parent with her 3 older sisters, they struggled, okay? And John, the message that this great celebration of our country's 250th has got to be driven out, not just by those who serve us in the halls of Congress, okay, but by those in the business community, those in the educational world. America is still that shining star. Doesn't matter where you start. What matters is where you finish.
I dropped out of college, too. I was 8 credits short, and I went to work in the grocery business. When I first started in the grocery business, I was making 90 cents an hour, and the cashier was making $1 an hour. I was outraged.
Well, John, think of it this way. We don't have to go back all the way in time to when the two of us started. Just turn the clock back in America to the start of one of the great American success stories, the Home Depot, okay? And the three founders, all friends of mine, Bernie Marcus, Ken Langone, and Arthur Blank, what they were most proud of was not the fortunes they created for themselves or for their investors, but for the fact that when the depot was founded, they said everyone who comes to work for us as an associate is going to earn and be a part of this experiment. And as of a couple of years ago, John, the Home Depot had 15,000 either current or former employees who started in the parking lot collecting shopping carts, who today, or at that point, several years ago, were worth more than $1 million each in Home Depot stock because they shared the success. The founders shared the success with their employees. They understood it was their employees that made the depot successful. And that's been repeated in so many businesses. And as we're on the dawning edge of a new technology era, the era of AI, which is going to change everything, John, from financial services to, if you will, the pharmaceutical world, and certainly in the drug discovery world. What a great time it is for American renewal. We've got to get away from this nonsense that the only way you can survive is with government handouts. The government should provide
You're absolutely right. And, the immigrants that my grandfather came and your forefathers came to America, they worked 80 hours a week. They made a better life for their kids and grandkids. The joke I tell is there's no more Greek diners. You know why? And there's no more Jewish delis because those people worked 80 hours a week, sent their kids to became investment bankers, became lawyers, became accountants, became everything else. But they didn't want to run the diners, and they didn't want to run the Jewish delis. And but now that was immigration. When me and Bill Fugazi used to run Ellis Island, if you remember Bill Fugazi and Lee Iacocca. And what the heck is going on now? I mean, the migrants come here and they want a handout. What say you?
There's a huge difference. Number one, my mother was the last of 16 births in her family. All of the children were union workers, some ILGWU, some paper box makers. My uncle was a musician. My mother and her three unmarried sisters raised me. My old man walked out when I was an infant. And, they not only worked, as you say, John, on the clock for hours upon hours, but when it became an opportunity that they could become what I'll call quasi-capitalists. And if I had my mother or any of her sisters here today and said to them, you were really capitalists, you weren't union workers, they'd look at me as if I was crazy. Why? Because none of them wanted to work on the clock. They wanted to work by piece. The more you produced, the more you got paid. That's a form of capitalism. And the reality is, after they finished their jobs, whether it was making boxes or making dresses, they would go home and they would make artificial flowers that they would sell to the wealthy people up in the Fifth Avenue area. It was a different culture. Our families came to America with the hope of becoming Americans. And the best way I can express that was my mother and her three sisters all spoke fluent Italian, but if I walked into the room, they went immediately to English. Why? Because they wanted me to be an American. They wanted me to assimilate into the American culture. Now, today, that's a disadvantage to not have that second language. But in those years, in the late 40s, 50s, and early 60s, you wanted your kids to grow up as red-blooded Americans, and you worked like a demon all right, to make a better life for your kids with the hope that your kids would make a better life for their kids. You're right about no more Greek diners, no more Jewish delis, okay? And the fact that those children, the people who owned those facilities, went on to become investment bankers and lawyers and accountants and teachers, that's terrific. But the ones that went on to some of the finest educational experiences and came out with degrees and advanced degrees in ancient comparative Greek literature became quickly aware of the fact that there was no employable skill attached to that. All right? And that's a failure of the educational system. It's also a failure to properly, look, John, you don't commercially channel a child at age 14, okay? But you have to get serious that education is twofold. One, to broaden one's mind, and two, to broaden the table offerings for your children and their children. And that's not happening today, John. We got to get back to basics in this country. And we got to start, in the greatest experiment of all, which is New York City, okay? New York City is on an express track to Armageddon if they keep it up, all right? I think this mayor, although he is clearly deeply, deeply left-leaning, is starting to understand that there is something called the budget, okay, and there is something called taxation. And when you tax people to the point where they run away, you don't have the ability to fund the budget, okay? So the damage that will be done in these 3 to 4 years, okay, can be undone. Or we could have a metamorphosis. This is a very smart young man. Maybe he'll wake up. Remember, how many children of the 60s, flower children, who were anti-capitalist, anti-Wall Street, anti-everything that was great about America. When they got a little older, they got a little wiser, and they wised up. And I think, whether it happens that way...
Well, I hope he wakes up.
Well, if he doesn't, he'll be a one-term mayor.
Dick Grasso, let me tell you, in case you don't know, I met with him, and I've been in contact with him, and even last week he spoke at the Police Athletic League, and I said to him, off the mic and off the, I said to him, you're on the brink of disaster or you're on the brink of success. And he understood that. He went to Bronx Science High School, and the joke I told is that the big item that we disagreed on, I said, I went to Brooklyn Tech, and it's a much better school than Bronx Science, and he says, we're never going to agree on that. He is a smart kid, and I think, those kids from Bronx Science and the kids from Brooklyn Tech and Stuyvesant High School, they all have the ability to change. But let's see what happens, and and I just have hope that common sense will prevail.
Well, John, I join you in that, and I do believe you are spot on. This is a very smart young man, and if he wants a future beyond mayoral status, okay, whether that's in politics or somewhere else, okay, he cannot walk away from the city of New York left like Detroit was in the early 1970s, okay? If he's labeled with the creator of Detroit 2.0, okay, he'll never have another important role in either the public or private sector.
Well,
and I think he's smart enough to recognize that. And I think with the help of people like you, John, okay, and guys like Jamie Dimon, Brian Moynihan, okay, David Solomon, there's so many talented people in the private sector that can counsel this mayor, okay? Remember when New York was flat broke in 1975 and the headline was Ford to New York dropped dead, okay? The business community got together. Didn't matter if you were a Democrat or a Republican. They created MAC thanks to the brilliance of Felix Horton, okay? Thanks to, a great governor, okay, who it didn't matter that he was a Democrat. He was a New Yorker, okay? New York first, party second.
Dick
Let's do
Grasso.
the right thing for the people.
I want you to have a great 4th of July weekend. We're out of time, but I want to continue this conversation, and me and you will continue this conversation. And thank you for everything you've done for New York and what you've done for our country. And we'll catch up again real soon.
John, it's my honor to have been with you, and I look forward to being with you down the road.
Thank
God
you so
bless.
much. God bless.
Be well. Bye-bye.